everyone. For our virtual worship moment this week, I just kind of wanted to share with you a quick story and a little bit of a challenge. Right now, what's going on in my life at the moment, some of you know already. I mentioned it on the video that got uploaded yesterday that my mom is in the hospital right now. She's in the ICU in Suffolk. And fortunately, everything is looking good. Everything is looking like it's going to be okay. But it reminded me how quickly the things in our life can become disrupted. And we have been living in this kind of prolonged season of disruption ever since the spring of 2020, when the COVID pandemic first reached the United States. And there's just been this incredible disruptive power in our lives since then. And it's what I've tried to keep in mind and try to continue to challenge myself, and hopefully will challenge you through this short video, is how every disruption in our life can be a potential opportunity for the Spirit to move in new ways that it may not have otherwise, or we may not have allowed it to otherwise. And so I want to tell you just a quick story. Many of you know the Sowers, David and Amy. They lead our Level Green missional community at Awaken. And part of the regular rhythms that they do as a Level Green missional community is they have a monthly brunch. And these brunch spaces, I've been there and I've enjoyed them so much. They're these beautiful, interconnected spaces of relationship and community where, people who know Jesus and people who don't know Jesus and people who have no desire to know Jesus are all gathering together, and we're seeing community developed and kingdom principles lived out right there in the neighborhood. And it's just an amazing way that the Spirit is moving every single month when they have these brunches. And kind of towards the fall, the summer moving into the fall of this past year, the Sowers had an issue. To make a long, very drawn out process for them kind of brief, they had some plumbing issues at their house. They had to tear up the floors. They had to tear out all the plumbing, and everything had to be redone. A very long, very drawn out, very expensive, and very disruptive process. And in the midst of this, they all of a sudden had no space to host what had become a regular and very looked forward to monthly brunch for their community. And so they could have viewed this disruption as, just completely hijacking what they were wanting to do. They all of a sudden, there's this roadblock, this obstacle into what the Spirit has been doing. And they could have just said, fine, postpone until further notice. We'll figure it out. But instead, the Spirit was able to use this disruption as to open a door of opportunity where another person who had been coming to these brunches regularly kind of took up the torch and said, hey, why don't we have it at my place for the next couple months until you guys are back settled? And so not only was this kind of like a plan B, where it was like, okay, maybe we would have rather done this, but instead we can do this, and kind of condescending to a less desirable option, right? Instead, they were able to go to this other person's home and host the brunch. And in doing so, there was this whole other network of people that knew her through her work and through her community and through her neighborhood that now also joined in on this brunch because she was hosting it at her home that would not have plugged into the one that's at the Sowers home. And so now on the other side of this, a couple months later, they have now picked up some people that are still continuing to be part of brunches and part of this great community together, even though it's now back at the Sowers home. And so the Spirit was able to use a disruption and not just give like a next best option, but actually use it to propel them forward and to take some of this missional momentum and this kingdom community that they were developing and expand it and grow it into new areas where it wouldn't have been otherwise. And so I'm not looking to necessarily make a one-to-one and say, here, let me show you how the Spirit is using, me having, family in the hospital to expand, my missional potential. I'm not ready to make that one-to-one, but I do think it's a great story that illustrates how the posture and the way that we approach disruption in our lives really can affect the outcome that disruption has in our lives. And so as we again are living in a continued prolonged season of disruption because of COVID and other things, that's my challenge for you, is that when you experience something disruptive in your life that seems to throw things off the rails, that seems to throw things out of whack, look for the opportunities that the Spirit may be making available to you in those times. How can I view this not as a setback, but maybe a way of the Spirit accomplishing something in my life or in my community that maybe I would not have otherwise allowed Him to do, or would not have otherwise jumped into this opportunity. So that's my challenge for you. Hopefully your disruptions in this season are minimal, but I hope that the disruptions that you do have, that you look and say, okay, how is the Spirit moving, and how is He creating an opportunity for some missional potential here in my life that wouldn't have been there otherwise. We love you guys. I'll see some of you at Super Bowl tomorrow, see some of you in missional communities throughout the week, and hopefully at our Gather Worship next weekend.